Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you're tuning in, there's a really good chance you're feeling, well, the crush of the modern world. You're busy, you're probably exhausted, but somehow at the end of the day, you just don't feel entirely productive. It's that feeling of being overworked, yet completely underutilized. Today, we're going to look at the actual research and data behind why we feel so stretched thin. And more importantly, we're going to break down a structured framework for finally escaping that trap.
So here's the big question we've got to ask ourselves right out of the gate. Are you majoring in minor activities? You know the feeling? We say yes to almost everything without a second thought, whether it's to avoid conflict, to please someone, or honestly, just out of habit. And because we're going in a million different directions all at once, we end up making very little progress in any of them. The pain of this choice overload is real, and it's completely draining us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The paradox of choice. Why more is less?
To understand our burnout, we have to look at the work of psychologist Barry Schwartz. Picture this. You're taking a quick trip to your local supermarket. You walk down the snack aisle and boom, you're hit with 85 different brands of crackers and 285 varieties of cookies. I mean, that is a genuinely panic-inducing amount of baked goods, right? We naturally assume that having all this choice brings liberation. But Schwartz's research shows that, past a certain point, modern abundance doesn't make us happier, it actually debilitates us. We literally become paralyzed by all these options.
And because of this massive overload, we kind of devolve. We go from being a deliberate chooser to a passive picker. A picker just blindly grabs whatever happens to be right in front of them and, hopes for the best. But a chooser actively reflects on what is genuinely important. The crazy thing is, the sheer volume of modern options actually robs us of the time to truly choose.
Moving on to Section 2, Maximizers versus Satisficers Evaluating Choices. Let's look at the emotional toll of how we evaluate these endless options. Because how you approach a decision matters just as much as the decision itself. Here's the psychological divide. If you're a maximizer, you only accept the absolute best. You exhaust all the alternatives, whether you're buying a TV or just picking a place to eat on a Friday night, because you are terrified you missed out on the optimal choice. On the flip side, a satisficer evaluates options until they find one that's simply good enough to meet their standards. And then, they just stop worrying about it.
Now, if you're sitting there thinking you might lean towards being a maximizer, well, the data is pretty sobering. Maximizers actually experience far more regret after making a choice. They spend way more time brooding, they constantly compare themselves to others, and they take much longer to recover when bad things happen. In a world of infinite choices, maximizing is basically a recipe for misery.
Which brings us to a better way. Section 3. The Essentialist Mindset. Less, but better.
So how do we stop maximizing the trivial? We pivot to a really powerful business and life philosophy detailed by Greg McKeown, known as Essentialism. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the core idea of discerning the vital few from the trivial many. Think about finding that one golden egg standing out among all the ordinary white ones. The hard truth is, most things in life are trivial. The ultimate goal here is to find that one golden opportunity where you can make your absolute highest contribution.
Let's define it clearly. Essentialism is the consistent and focused pursuit of less but better. Let me be clear, this is absolutely not some new time management hack. It's not about doing more with less, or somehow packing even more into your already overflowing schedule. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's about stopping to ask yourself, am I actually investing my time and resources in the right thing? When you compare the two mindsets, it's night and day. The non-essentialist is like a frantic octopus, totally reactive, juggling a million things with their energy spread just a millimeter deep across everything. But the essentialist, they're the archer. They deeply understand that every single yes is automatically a no to something else, so they strategically concentrate all their efforts to hit the bullseye.
Let's get practical. Section 4. The 3 phases. Explore, eliminate, execute.
We're transitioning from the abstract mindset to a highly actionable framework here. The triad of the essentialist is simple: explore, eliminate, and execute. First, you need the actual space to explore your options. You might actually consider more options than a non-essentialist, but you commit to far, far fewer. Second, you ruthlessly eliminate the non-essential. You just have to have the courage to cut the distractions. And third, you execute effortlessly by building systems, routines, and buffers that make doing the essential things completely frictionless.
To help with that tricky elimination phase, there's this incredible tool called the 90% rule. Here's how it works. You rate a new opportunity on a scale of 0 to 100. If it doesn't score at least a 90 in importance, it automatically becomes a 0. Boom, gone. It's either a very clear hell yes, or it's a firm no.
Greg McKeown really hits the nail on the head here. He says, only once you give yourself permission to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everyone, can you make your highest contribution toward the things that really matter. You absolutely have to protect your time and your energy as an asset. Let's be real. Burning yourself out serves absolutely no one.
And that brings us to Section 5, the art of saying no, protecting your time.
This is undoubtedly the hardest part of this entire framework, the actual tactical courage to decline requests. So the crucial point is, how do we decline without burning our bridges? Well, here is the graceful no framework. First, you acknowledge and appreciate the ask. Second, you briefly explain your position. Let them know you're currently focused on an essential priority. Third, offer an alternative, like maybe suggesting someone else who could step in to help. And fourth, leave the door open for the future. Remember, you are rejecting the activity, not the person.
If you're someone who struggles in the heat of the moment, you need to write this exact script down. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I'm serious. This is your ultimate weapon against that automatic, guilt-driven yes. It immediately buys you the space and time to just pause, run that 90% rule we just talked about, and genuinely decide if the request is truly essential.
Now I know what you're thinking. What about my boss? Saying no to a senior leader can feel like a total career death wish. But take a look at this script. Yes, I'm happy to make this the priority. Which of these other projects should I deprioritize? This is so brilliant. You aren't flat out refusing them. Instead, you're respectfully forcing them to grapple with the reality of trade-offs. Here's another really great tactic for establishing firm boundaries. Notice the phrasing on this one. You are intentionally focusing on what you are willing to do rather than just what you won't do. So by saying, you are welcome to borrow my car, I am willing to make sure the keys are here for you, you are gently but incredibly firmly communicating, hey, I am not going to drive you there myself.
The sources outline a few other tactical methods for this too. You can use the awkward pause. Literally just wait 3 agonizing seconds before answering and let them fill the conversational void. You can set your email bounce backs to say you're in monk mode for deep work. You can use some self-deprecating humor or, just refer the request to someone else who might be a better fit.
When you actually master this, when you make that shift from being a paralyzed maximizer to a highly focused essentialist, the transformation is profound. You regain your control, you significantly reduce your burnout, and because you're doing fewer things, your performance in those truly vital areas absolutely skyrockets. Ironically, by saying no to all those surface-level obligations, you end up creating the time and the space for much deeper, far more meaningful relationships.
So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative challenge. As soon as this explainer ends, I want you to open up your calendar for the next week. Look really honestly at how your time is blocked out. Ask yourself, which of those commitments are the vital few that score a 90 or above? And which ones are the trivial many that you need the courage to eliminate today?